Hi, I'm Chris Clark, President, CEO of the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to another COVID-19 recovery and resource update from the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, brought to you also by the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Their President and CEO, Santiago Marquez, will be with us on this call today to ask questions from his members. And we also appreciate the support of Georgia Public Broadcast, and thank you for joining us on GPB as well. You know, as we start this discussion today, we want to remember and keep in our prayers all the folks in South Georgia that have been struck by tornadoes. We're still assessing that damage, but our prayers are with those folks this afternoon. For those of you that have been following the Georgia Chamber, we ask you to continue to follow us on social media. We've released some new guidance for those folks trying to figure out how to move through the reopening of the economy. You can find that on our COVID-19 webpage, which is gachamber.com/COVID-19. That's where you can also find resources and up-to-the-minute updates from federal and state agencies as well to help you as you recover and regrow your business. Today, we're really focused on the impact of COVID-19 to our farmers and those folks that live in rural Georgia. And we're very happy today to be joined by Joyce White with U.S. Department of Agriculture and Commissioner Gary Black, our good friend at the Georgia Department of Agriculture. And we're going to jump right into it because we've got a lot to cover today. Commissioner, thank you for what you're doing, your team and all their hard work. Love to get your perspective on where our farmers are today, because we know they have absolutely been ravaged by the economic impact from our restaurant chains just across the board. Love to get your perspective and thoughts and learn a little bit more about what you're doing in those areas.
Well, Chris, thank you. And to all the Chamber friends on here, many friends for many years, I'm grateful for the opportunity. I join you. It does look like Southwest Georgia's has another challenge in front of it, and we'll want to get to another opportunity to some more solutions, perhaps. But it's heartbreaking as we start today. When we look really great big challenges at this time of the year, sometimes in recent years, we've been talking about a late freeze. A couple of years or so ago, it was a trade deal, things that were throwing obstacles in our way. I think, unfortunately, our perspective today is we may be entering into one of the more productive springs that we've ever had. The weather's been awesome. We have a great blueberry crop and other things that are just now, we're on the cusp of beginning this harvest. Unfortunately, in many cases, people have lost 50% of their market. That's certainly true with dairy. I think all of you, many of you have been horrified, as I have, that we have all these resources, but yet nowhere for them to go. And we've lost 50% of that market. Fruit and vegetables has been ravaged in Florida. One of the things we're certainly 3 or 4 weeks behind that. So we've been trying to take some proactive steps that I hope will at least help fill part of that void. But it's just the heartbreaking thing is to finally have a great crop and nowhere for it to go, or to still be pinched in on the side from actually from some imports that are coming into our market window, but certainly to have the market interrupted from food service and school nutrition, it's very challenging. So we certainly got our hands full, but hopefully some of the proactive things we can talk about in a little while are some of the things we're trying to do to mitigate that.
Thank you, Commissioner. I want to jump into the questions here, and I'll ask one so Santiago, you can be ready. But, as we sit here today, talk about those storms hitting South Georgia today, we're still recovering from the hurricane. Many of our farmers are still struggling. Do you know if there's going to be any flexibility for those that may have received rural development loans from the USDA? And, what's the status of those storm-related block grants that I know you've been working with Secretary Perdue on here for a year or so now? Commissioner, what's the latest?
Long to get the relief package finally signed to get something through Congress. President signed it June 6th. Georgia was the only state to actually complete its block grant application and proposal on time, and we did so June 28th. but it was just we're just several weeks into the initial enrollment for that, and unfortunately, as we speak today, I still don't even have a signed contract. We have begun enrollment. However, I'm very proud of our team. We put a very good, smart team of some retired bankers and other professionals, some retired USDA officials to help us in the contract of those application reviews. But we have over 1,900 that have been submitted. April 30th is the final deadline. That's a Corona extended deadline that we put forth and to help people. Extension people have been helping private contractors, forestry consultants, wide range of people that helping landowners and producers make application. But Chris, I guess a little bit of the silver lining of that, that's $347 million that's ready to enter Georgia's economy. That's way and above any of this the Corona-related money. It's just unfortunate we're a year late, but we've been battling every day, and our USDA partners they want to be helpful. It's just a long process, but I hope that we're doing some things on the state level to show how if we could get state block grant contracts done, we might actually could move along a little quicker. We might rewrite a little bit of history here of how farm support programs are done, and certainly I think we've been creative and a very, very smart group of people to try to implement this for the state of Georgia and try to set some high standards. 347 will be paid out in 2 tranches. We expect for that to be somewhere in the neighborhood of about 40% up front, then we'll settle it out and then pay the balance out maybe 45 days later. So unfortunately, probably best case scenario on that's wrapping up July 15th. My goodness, we should be able to do it quicker than that. But it's just we're taking in the enrollment period, and I would encourage anybody here or anybody listening to make sure if you've got a social media network, Georgia's block grant program is still open for business till 11:59 on April 30th, 11:59 p.m. If you have a landowner or farmer, they've got to make application, because April 30th does not mean May 1st. We've got to get going, and that's going to be a hard date. But we'll enterprise the money on commodities, beef, dairy, pecan, vegetable, timber, uninsured infrastructure. And we'll enterprise that money once we have all the enrollment in. Then we have the enrollment in, we can see how much money goes each where, and then 347 goes out in 2 tranches.
Okay. Santiago?
Yeah. Commissioner, good to see you again.
Santiago.
Look forward to eating lunch with you again. It's always a treat.
You've been a great assistance on state block grants that work much quicker than the one that we're working with now.
Well, it's a pleasure to serve you, sir, and definitely keeping everybody in mind as being affected today by storms. Thanks for being with us. My question is, my first question is around shortage of migrant workers. Are we still seeing that in the state? And how can that be resolved in your opinion, sir?
Well, thanks, Santiago, because that's I would, unfortunately, I've used the word horrified a couple of times today, but it seems like one of the more popular things. We were about 6-7 weeks ago when the original border closing discussions were going on. That sent a shockwave through labor, through our community, because there were those, recognized H-2A contracts that were ready to be fulfilled. And we were immediately, that took about 24, 48 hours to sort that out, that they never meant to impact H-2A contracts, but they were limiting them to a person had to have been here in the last year. They would be fast tracked and they'd be allowed to, but they were going to limit first time interviews. We got involved very quickly, and thanks to Secretary Perdue, Secretary Pompeo, all the way up to the Vice President, they recognized that while we were going to have a negative impact on labor market, need to expand that window so that if you had a contract in the last 4 years, allow folks to come in without an interview. And then they later opened up opportunities for new interviews. And so where we are now, there's some shortages, but that telephone has stopped ringing in my office. That doesn't mean everybody exactly has all of it, but I don't sense the labor alarm that we had that was certainly a very scary situation 6 or 7 weeks ago. So hopefully we're going to have adequate supplies there. It turns to just the whole issue there is once those contract professionals get here, and I think that's so important to recognize. Those are professionals. It's very vital. Once they arrive here, then the producers required to have them and meet 75% of the cost of that contract. And so that's one of the other challenges we have right now. If our vegetable market is impacted like Florida's was, then we're not only going to have a good crop, there's not going to be a market incentive to actually harvest it, yet the producer is going to be on the hook to pay for the labor. And that's just that's another big challenge our folks are facing right now. But I want to be careful to say that has everybody's situation been solved? That's not, because we have labor challenges every year. But as I said a while ago, that telephone stopped ringing in recent weeks.
Commissioner, let's do 2 more questions for you, and then we'll turn our attention to the USDA. I'm curious. We see a lot of commentary out there about shifting supply chains. And obviously, agriculture, from that perspective, we've got supply chains that go into restaurants, that go into schools and institutions, and another supply chain for our restaurants and eateries. And then you've got the global supply chain that's impacted by the COVID-19 virus as well. And I know it's unfair to ask you to look into a crystal ball here, but what do you suspect is going to be the impact on the global supply chain and how Georgia farmers and the supplier networks and our processors have to change operations as we move through into this really new normal in this life with COVID-19?
Yeah, I think Chris, let's start here. It's been interesting to see some of the food service, those companies, great companies in Georgia that have a dedicated focus on food service, how they've actually pivoted, particularly from a protein standpoint, as I understand, they pivoted to help backfill what's been needed at the retail level. You have food service folks calling on retail, which is kind of they've never done before, but they've got product and they're trying to, it's an interesting thing. I think you're going to, I don't know, my crystal ball says, it goes so strong to say it's complete restructuring, but I tell you, there's going to be a lot of rethinking of what are my supply relationships? How do I get that supply relationship closer to me? It'll be interesting to see whether that means more direct contracts. I think Georgia Grown is going to be stronger than ever when we come out of the end of this. We're just about to roll a PSA campaign, a social media campaign that y'all have been so wonderful to support ever since we've started this. Such a great partner. I hope you'll dovetail in with us on this too. But you know, the time to buy Georgia Grown is now, and we'll have a hashtag that's now more than ever. And that's just right on the edge. You'll be seeing something on that pretty quickly. I think people are. I think there are going to be some agricultural opportunities for farmers right now. I know of one of our, these little individuals saying things. You'll say, Gary, well, that's just a small thing. Why does that? Well, I'm going to tell you what, a bunch of small things turn into big things, and we don't ever need to look back and the impact of small business on the state and those opportunities that people will find a way to do business differently. One of our largest hog producers, he's got a direct line to the major that he produces for one of the packers that's had some plant closings. He's a little nervous. He did a simple thing about 10 days ago and put on the, you know, if I had some of my hogs, he put on social media, if I had this, would y'all buy it? Not only did he almost choked his own Facebook down just by the responses of the local community. He's now aligned with one of our smaller packers in South Georgia. And we've already worked with him to get a mobile meat license and are working on his USDA label so that here's a direct chain that's starting as a result of this. Now I can tell you a number of cases where that's already happening. So it's going to be interesting how all of us may get this supply. We'll forsake normal we're not going to forsake retail. We're not going to forsake our normal things. But I do think we're going to be more conscious of it. And there's going to be opportunity for people there. That's very interesting. So, but the time to promote Georgia Grown is never been more important than it is right now, folks. We've had great Kathy Simon, Georgia Food Industry Association, plus some of her major retailer members. We've had group meetings. We've had individual meetings. I think you're going to see the brand promoted more at retail than ever before. We've got a great hospitality coalition that our team's working with too, to try to first help some of those folks in the hospitality industry that actually need food now. They're used to serving food. Now when it's our turn to serve them. And we've Chef Linton Hopkins and some others that we've got a partnership with there. But this, I think we're not going to lose a global perspective. We're not going to lose a domestic U.S. perspective. But I do believe there's going to be opportunity to build this business a little closer to home because of all this.
Thank you, Commissioner. Santiago?
Yes. And Commissioner, along the lines of kind of the same question, but more about how do we get food as a state to the most vulnerable communities, right? Understanding that we've had some disruption in the supply chain and where we're at.
Santiago, couldn't be a more timely question. We just had a little think tank meeting about this prior to this call. I've assembled a group of leaders and just to help us think through how do we address what USDA has rolled out. The solicitation, as I understand, will start tomorrow. It's got a very short window and very high expectations to move very quickly. Part of this $19 billion package from the federal side to help farmers actually has $3 billion worth of commodity purchases. And that's dairy, it's fruit and vegetable, and it's meat. And meat under that contract means cooked chicken or pork. And so the notion is to have proposals from purveyors that are able to work with producers to supply this food and put it in boxes. Now, is it a $20 box, a $40 box, a 50-pound box, or 100? No, there's a lot of flexibility, and we're going to learn more about it when the solicitation comes out tomorrow. But what we are working together with Kyle Wade and his team and the food bank networks all across the state, we've got one of the next steps is going to be faith-based community, because we've got some outreach to do there as far as for these folks. But I think it's USDA's intention to have these innovative purveyors that are capable of working with farmers and then assembling a product box, either a combo box or a meat and dairy box, fruit and vegetable box, and then use our food bank networks and faith-based community to have those in distribution and have them pretty quickly. That's a dedication of $100 million per month for, now I wish it was Georgia, that's nationwide, and that's probably something I bet will be addressed, because it's not, you're spreading that butter pretty thin across the country, even with $3 billion. But the notion is $100 million a month for fruit and vegetable and meat and dairy. So $300 million a month, and run that through $3 billion. So that at least gets us to the end of the year. But what we're focused on right now, and that's what we're trying to figure out, how to make these pitches back to USDA with Georgia businesses. I think it's absolutely essential. If the intention is to take these resources and help Georgia farmers as we feed Georgia's people, that we have to have it where it'd be unconscionable if we have produce boxes show up at Atlanta Atlanta Community Food Bank and everybody else if they don't have Georgia products in them. And that's where we're trying to wed the Georgia Grown program and our network with those people who might be making application to be one of the purveyors, because certainly from May 15th, when they would like to launch May 15th, May 15th to July 15th, September 15th to November 15th, it is unconscionable to me that we'd ever have a federally supported produce food box that would not be largely not full of Georgia produced products, so that we can take those funds and actually use them to help provide a little bit of market stability to our producers. So we're dead in the middle of that. We got several teams working. On top of that, we've got another coalition working with Jimmy Lewis and Hometown Health and some 60 of our rural hospitals. They're talking about how do we get a new buying coalition just for rural hospitals because they're right there in the rural communities. They're used to kind of buying. They haven't been too concerned about the food mile, but they are now. So that perhaps yet again is one of the silver lining things that comes out of this challenge, is that it's going to make us rethink how this works. And we're putting every ounce of effort that we have in almost every waking moment that I have with a smart group of people that I'm blessed to work with, trying to make this good for Georgia.
Commissioner, thank you. I'm on my church, Dogwood Church. I'm on the board for our food bank. It's called the Real Life Center, and people struggle. They need this support. So thank you and bless you for that great work. I want to shift our gear a little bit now and talk to our friends. You've referenced USDA several times. My former boss is now not governor anymore, but Secretary Perdue. And our state leader for USDA is Joyce White. Joyce, thank you for joining us today. We know that USDA has rolled out a multitude of programs, not just to help farmers, but to help all rural communities, rural businesses. I feel like every day there's a new plan, a new program. And I know the other day the Secretary was with the President and advocated for additional funding that went into phase 3 and flowing through your department. So love to get a feel for the different programs that are available from USDA to help our rural communities right now and our rural businesses and farmers. So Joyce, thanks for joining us. And thanks for what you do. You gotta unmute yourself there. There you go.
Chris, and thank you, David Rayner and Lisa Sherman, for setting this up. And hello, Commissioner Black, and nice to meet you, Santiago. So in rural development, I guess people know by now that we are the 5th largest bank in the nation, and we loan about $1 billion a year to rural Georgia. And that's in the form of loans, different types of loans and grants and loan grant combos. And our purpose is hopefully to bring economic sustainability to rural areas and to bring jobs to rural areas. So we have about 42 different types of loans and grant programs. So it's really kind of complex. And I'm just going to try and hit at an executive level here what it is we do. And this CARES Act keeps changing and evolving, which is a good thing. I'm very happy about it. And rural development has implemented some flexibility in its programs to help during COVID-19. But as you know, we do loan money and we do grant money, and we have different programs for infrastructure and water and waste, and we can build big businesses, we can fund large businesses, small businesses. We have grants for different things like your emergency systems, fire, police protection, but housing, we provide affordable housing to about 5,000 Georgians each year, rural Georgians that is. And what's really important during this time is our broadband programs. It's been said that we're the only federal agency that can build a community from the ground up. And since I've been in this job, I have seen pretty much that happen. So the question today that we're looking at, though, is what has rural development done to provide some extra relief during COVID-19, and what is the CARES Act doing for us through our programs? Well, in our business and industry guaranteed loan programs, which is can guarantee a loan for up to $25 million, and a population of 50,000 or less can apply for a business and industry guaranteed loan. So in this program, the CARES Act appropriated $20.5 million in budget authority, which supports $1 billion in lending authority. So that was just appropriated by the CARES Act. And what we in rural development has offered is for lenders to offer 180-day payment deferrals on existing loans. And this is effective until September the 30th, 2020. Repayment terms have been increased with options for deferment, and operational expenses such as payroll, benefits, supplies, and inventory are eligible. And there are also some time extensions being discussed currently, but they're not approved yet, because even once we get instructions, we still have to get through an approval process, a regulatory process. So we're waiting on that. And our community facilities program, and this is the program that communities and nonprofits and counties and municipalities can go through for things like hospitals and schools, counseling centers, nursing homes, firehouses. We could go on and on. And they have no limit in their funding. And a good example of this is we just funded Tiff Medical Center at $90 million to provide rural health care to rural Georgians down there. They're doing some phenomenal things. But Rural Development has provided relief in this program by providing up to 1 year deferral on existing loans. This just is hot off the press 2 days ago. It was posted on the Federal Register. And also the Senate is considering more dollars to benefit. I heard the President himself mention hospitals. And so Jack Stanek, who's our program director over facilities, and I are certainly hoping rural hospitals will get some of that funding when it does come through. But like I said, even legislation is approved, we have to wait the regulatory process before we know what we've got and what we can get out the door. So I went over business and industry and community facilities. Now, our single family housing program is a very, very robust program. What we've done there, and this is Rural Development, has set aside a 60-day moratorium on foreclosures and evictions. So this is for both direct and guaranteed housing loans. Also effective immediately and upon request, lenders shall provide forbearance of the borrower's single family housing guaranteed loan program for up to 180 days if there is an impact by COVID-19. There'll be no accrual of fees or penalties or interest. And in addition, the forbearance may be extended another 180 days. Also, a direct loan borrower who's experiencing a reduction of income due to COVID-19 and their income's been decreased by 10%, they can apply for a payment assistance package where additional subsidies are available. The USDA has waived and relaxed certain parts of the application package. And also, if someone is in the middle of applying for a USDA home loan, but they start to get fearful because of, fear of job loss, or maybe they have a medical bill due to COVID-19 that's making it difficult for them, we can freeze that application because for a period, I think it's 4 months. Yeah, 4 months. And we don't want to lose that loan. And we're still open. We're still making loans. So hopefully they'll get through the rough spot and we'll be able to carry forward and they'll be able to own the home, get a home loan. In multifamily housing, we have 458 housing complexes across Georgia that provides affordable homes for Georgians in rural Georgia. And those housing complexes, as you might know, are very, very expensive to own. So payments by an owner of a multifamily housing complex will be deferred for 90 days without additional interest. And then when that loan reaches maturity, any deferred payments can be added at the end of the loan. Also, late fees and penalties are being waived if a multifamily housing complex owner is having difficulty making their payment. And lastly, we've asked those multifamily housing owners to be very, very patient with their renters, and they can't be evicted until after July the 25th, 2020 for not paying their rent on time. But most importantly, I think what we would be interested in today is how, if we can only be close to each other within 10 feet, how can we stay connected? And so our broadband programs are very important at this time. And as you know, President Trump, in the very beginning of his presidency, he selected Secretary Sonny Perdue to chair a task force of 22 different federal agencies and to go out and just listen to rural America. What are your needs? And they came back and reported to the president that the number one need is broadband. And the president has had a very seared focus on creating a program and creating dollars to go towards broadband. And our most popular program right now is the Reconnect program. And the CARES Act appropriated an additional $100 million set aside for grants for this program. So we've already passed our first cycle of funding, and Georgia had 7 applications, and 3 were awarded in Georgia, which has been very, very helpful. That was Darien, Evans County, and Ellijay. And then we went through the second cycle, and that just ended last week. And we only had 3 applicants. I wish we would have had more, but we had 3. And I'm very, very hopeful that those 3, I'd like all 3 to make it through, because there's $600 million set aside in that second cycle. There's $550 million in the first cycle, $600 million in the second cycle. So we're just very hopeful that, and we've been trying to get the word out, and we did a lot in February, not knowing that this virus was upon us, but we held 2 different classes on how to apply for the Reconnect. One was 1 day in Macon, and the other was a 2-day in Atlanta. And then we awarded 2 different awards, one in Ellijay and one down in Evans County, and the secretary and the governor and both of our U.S. senators and 2 congressmen were there for that. We had a lot of media attention. We've been trying to get the word out about that Reconnect. And then lastly, our distance learning and telemedicine grant is very, very popular right now. We've seen some phenomenal work by those that have applied and made it through the application process and have been awarded. We currently have an application window open. It just opened on April the 14th, and it ends on July the 13th. So there's still time to get your DLT package, distance learning telemedicine application package in. Recently, we awarded 1 DLT to Augusta University Research Institute. They were awarded $310,950. And what they've done is they've set up a telecommunications bridge to 13 end-user sites in 13 different rural counties. And they have medical professionals, like from the Medical College of Georgia and the College of Nursing, that are providing training to these 13 end-user sites. And each site has state-of-the-art equipment provided by USDA, and they can fit 40 people in a room as soon as we can fit 40 people in a room. As soon as the COVID-19 is lets up on us some. But it's just really exciting to see the things that can be accomplished through distance learning and telemedicine. And like I said, that window doesn't end until July 13th. So we have some time on that. And CARES Act provided $25 million extra dollars to that program within the last 2 weeks. So we're very excited. And I'm hearing that the president is going to sign another phase of the CARES Act today, and we believe that there'll be some. Thank you.
Thanks, Joyce. Santiago, I'm going to turn it over to you to ask a question or two here in a moment, but I do think it's remarkable. I think when most people think of USDA, Joyce, they think of, the ag sector and our farmers, and you guys do so much great support for those men and women and those families or farm families around the country. But you really are our partner. Talk about rural prosperity and rural renaissance. You're there with us for the hospitals, the downtowns, and for so many other organizations in the state. And so we just appreciate you. You guys hit so many different areas. Santiago, I'd love to give you an opportunity to ask Joyce a couple of questions here.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Joyce, nice to meet you. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. Truly appreciative of it. I have a question concerning the president's new immigration restrictions. Do you foresee an impact on the agricultural industry, or is the agricultural industry concerned about the labor force being affected by it?
Okay, that's out of my lane a little bit, but I can tell you just from knowing the secretary as I do, the secretary and the president have been talking about that, and he has assured the secretary that he is making a way for these workers, that they are professionals and our farming industry is dependent upon them. So I've only heard secondhand or what I see in the media. I cannot comment because farming and agricultural growing is out of my lane a little bit.
Well, thank you for that. And next question, you can let me know if this isn't right in your lane or not. But in terms of the food industry workers, and keeping them safe, right? And from the virus. Any thoughts? Are there guidelines or regulations from the USDA for the workers out in the field, or is that not part of your agency? And forgive my ignorance on that.
That's okay. Everybody assumes USDA, as I did before I took this job, is about planting and growing and food. But no, that is not in my lane either. I apologize that I can't answer that.
Not a problem, but thank you again for being here with us and your information and the work you're doing. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I do think it's worthwhile for us, Santiago. I think you raised a great question about our farm workers in this state, and I do think we ought to be able to work with the Department of Labor to see what those standards are, maybe from the CDC, and share those back and see how we can promulgate those out to the rest of the state of Georgia.
And we're
one
happy
thing
to get them in Spanish too.
Yeah, right. Exactly. One of the things I do want to mention, Congress has passed now phase 3, the president signing phase 3, refunding phase 3 for additional PPE and EIDL loans. We spent a lot of time yesterday with our friends from the SBA. And the good news is that rules have been promulgated finally to allow sole proprietorships and small businesses like farm families to be able to take advantage of those dollars that are in the system. And so I want to encourage all of our farm families that are watching, immediately contact your bank, go through the process. Those dollars won't last long, maybe only 10 days is what we're expecting right now. We will be spending time with Senator Perdue and SBA Regional Administrator Ashley Bell on Monday afternoon for more details and more information, but I'd go ahead and contact your bank today to go through that. And for all of our rural small businesses that are out there, the same thing. There'll be more money set aside in this new funding for small businesses through your community lenders. And so get out there, talk to your community lenders, talk to your banks. I can't thank our banks enough for the great job that they've done during this crisis. Joyce, we appreciate so much what USDA has done, continue to do. We want to plug you into our upcoming Rural Prosperity Summits in North Georgia and in Tifton. You're always there. You're always a great partner. But this year, it's going to be a little bit more that we're going to need, right? A little deeper dive to talk about this. Rural Georgia was impacted so heavily after the last financial crisis. And we were just starting to pull our way and climb our way out of it. We're starting to have some nice announcements, particularly in Southwest Georgia after the hurricanes and after the tornadoes. And now that part of the state has become a hot spot. And so they're suffering even more. And then with the tornadoes that we're learning today, even more worried about recovery in our rural community. So we look forward to partnering with you and obviously Commissioner Gary Black. We so appreciate you being on the front lines every day and helping Georgia farmers and farm families. It matters so much. So I encourage you to go to USDA website, the Department of Agriculture's website, to the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce website, and to gachamber.com/COVID-19 for the latest updates and resources. And I hope that you will join us with our next discussion with Senator Perdue and Regional Administrator Ashley Bell. We'll also have with us on that video call members of the White House's response team as well. So thank you. Be safe, and may God continue to bless the state of Georgia.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Joyce. Great job. Thank you, Santiago. Appreciate it, guys. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.